Spooky story time, everyone. Hey, welcome back. As you can tell by the title of today's video, we're diving into the unexplained with some brand new tales ready to unfold in front of your eyes. Well, ears since you're listening to me. Hey, in case you missed my message in the last video, which if you haven't seen it yet, not sure what you're waiting for, I told you all I was going to be going on vacation with my family. See, my family and I are going to be spending time in Mexico to celebrate my dad's 60th birthday, as well as, catching up with family and friends. Therefore, I probably won't be able to respond to all your comments and messages, and on top of this, I might be skipping a week out on uploading. Actually, if you're listening right now, this is one of the videos I had scheduled. So, I think this is a great way for you to catch up on the last videos, since so many of you have missed them. But anyways, if you wanted to see what I was up to, then you're more than welcome to check out my adventures on my Instagram. I'd be more than happy to have you there. But with that said, let's get on to these spooky tales, and I'll see you at the end. Let's go. Story number 1. The Man in the Top Hat. This is the first time I'm ever sharing this set of experiences, so perhaps one of you might be able to give me some insight. As of right now, I'm 35 years old and I'm living on my own, but I want to take you back in time. That's when these series of events started to happen. To set the scene, this was back around in 1996. I still remember it fairly well because we had just recently moved into a new home. See, my father was presented a better job opportunity in a city about 5 hours away. Therefore, I ended up moving to a different school before starting my year. Here's the thing with my parents. They're really old school. That means when they saw this house on the market that resembled this old school Victorian-style house, yeah, you bet they jumped at the opportunity. They're like kids entering a candy shop. Side note, I actually never set foot in that house as I was always busy with school life. Therefore, when I first entered the house, I had this really strange feeling about it. This is when I would start to begin noticing this strange activity. When we first arrived, I was instantly welcomed with a sudden cold air. Now, I'm not talking about something like wind hitting your face when you're walking outside. No. I'm talking about it being 85 degrees 1 second, then you're hit with something that feels like it's 60. If that wasn't enough, my parents were still taking things out of the car, so as you might expect, by the time they got there, the cold air, well, it was gone. Of course, they thought I was making it up, considering they didn't feel anything, not that I could really blame them. Okay, so about a month goes by and nothing else seems to happen. I did, however, get nervous at times, considering my room was on the second floor on its own. But of course, my parents just blamed this on me not being used to the house. Ugh, that house. Seriously, anytime I needed to use the restroom at night, it was a spooky adventure in itself. Like I mentioned, my room was on the second story. Consider it almost like an attic, just that it had been converted into a living space. So, to get to the restroom, I had to climb down these old creaky set of stairs that honestly needed some work. Once you reach the bottom of the steps, you have to go down this lonely dark hallway until you pass my parents' room. Just beyond that was the restroom. Well, this night I've been doing just that, as I was in the process of washing my hands. In front of me was one of those old antique mirrors with a fancy bronze frame around it. As I grabbed the soap, I looked into the reflection of the mirror, and mind you, the restroom door was open. Wouldn't you know it, I saw what looked to be a shadow of someone walking towards the end of the hallway. I did have to do a double take considering how dark it was, but regardless, it was enough for me to quickly close and lock the door. I guess it didn't help that I was a paranoid teenager. Oops. As I sat there for about 5 minutes, I started telling myself, hello? You do realize your mom or dad just got up to get something from the kitchen. Why in the world are you overreacting about something like that? Come on. That calmed me down, and I exited and returned back to my room. I never did mention it to my parents, though looking back, even if I did, they probably wouldn't have even believed me. Okay, let me get on to some of the more serious strange activity that happened. Here is one of those experiences. See, my dad and uncle were busy renovating the house, which explains why the house was so cheap, and I was in my room watching TV. I forget, but I believe they were painting the hallways or something. But anyways, all of a sudden, I'm able to hear my dad yelling from downstairs, and I head down to see what the issue was. There he is on the ground, complaining I'd moved the ladder he was standing on. Now, wait, hold on. I moved the ladder? Sorry, Dad, but I was in my room. No way I could be that fast and move it. He wasn't having any of it. Whatever. Here's another experience. One night, I was in the living room sitting on the couch watching some movies with my parents. At around, I'd say, 11 p.m., they head off to bed, and I stay up to finish Pirates of the Caribbean. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I began to hear what sounded like someone talking. I couldn't understand what was being said, but it definitely sounded like someone was having a full-on conversation in the kitchen. Again, thinking my parents had gotten up, I ignore it for another 10 minutes or so as the talking goes away. Once again, there is sudden talking alongside what sounds like laughter. Now I was really starting to become nervous, so I turned down the volume on the TV to get a better listen. Yep, just like before, there is the sound of talking. Okay, that's enough, I tell myself. I'm going to go and see what this is all about. So I get up from the couch and I head over to the kitchen, only to see nothing. Just like that, the voices had disappeared, and all was silent. Seriously, what was going on here? Suddenly, I hear something in the living room and I quickly run over to see what had happened. My first thought was perhaps somebody had broken into the house. You see, there was a series of break-ins in the area, so I was thinking perhaps we were next. I head over to be met with the same cold breeze I'd felt the first day we arrived. That's when I saw him. I kid you not. As I turned around into the hallway, I could see the silhouette of an old man wearing a top hat and a fancy suit staring back at me. This goes on for about 5 seconds, until he turns around and walks into the dark hallway. I don't know, but it's like all the energy I suddenly had disappeared, just like that, because I remember struggling to even move or even say anything. I later determined it was because I was in a state of shock. Regardless, once I regain my composure, I run over to my parents' room, and I'm desperately trying to wake them up. Mom! Dad! Get up now! Someone's inside the house. Thankfully, this statement was enough for my dad to grab his trusty .45 and he scans the house. He finds nothing, but he did say he heard the sound of some whispering. Yes, finally, I wasn't the only one to have sensed or heard something in that house. I knew I wasn't crazy. That was that night. Now let's fast forward to the conclusion where we ended up making a shocking discovery. This was about a year later. Since the previous experiences, things seemed to have more or less settled down. My dad and uncle were in the process of renovating the house. They were tearing down different sections of the home. I remember I was over at a friend's house, so I wasn't really aware of what was going on. When I returned later that evening, I was surprised to see that there was an extra little room I'd never seen before. Hey, Dad, what's up with the new room? Wow, did you already build one that fast? He goes on to tell me that this room was actually here. They only just found it today. It was sort of a closet space that had this little time capsule in it. From the looks of it, the old man who previously owned the house had left it there. He has since passed on, but my dad waited for me to get home to open it. Inside, we ended up finding a couple of items. A top hat, a newspaper from the 1940s, some old candies, a couple stamps, and even a note with a picture of a man. One look at that picture ended up making me freeze. See, it looked just like the man I'd seen those many nights ago. He had the same top hat, and he also had the same suit. Anyways, one problem was the note appeared to be written in German. Thankfully, one of my dad's friends could understand it, so he ended up reading it for us. The note read, "Whoever finds this box in my hidden room, please take care of it. I would love for my memory to continue living on through whoever finds this. Thank you. And I hope your future is a bright and successful one." I guess that explained the activity that was going on here. In the end, we decided not to continue to disturb the house, so we ended up only fixing major details. Other than that, the house remained the same. It's now been over 20 years since those events took place, but sadly the house no longer exists. As for the box with the items, my dad has it in storage somewhere, and I can't wait to share it with you all. Story number 2. Something was mimicking my dad's voice. After spending hours upon hours listening to and reading other people's experiences and stories with the unknown, I figured, you know what? Now is a perfect time to share my experiences with you all. I really want some ideas on what this is, so that's why I'm sharing this. I've talked to friends about this, but it figures. They have no clue what I'm talking about. Growing up, I always had this feeling that I could sense unexplained activity around me. I don't know. It's like I had this sixth sense, so to speak, in which I could hear or feel things that others wouldn't be able to experience. I've since met quite a bit of people who share this similar ability. Anyways, this story has always stuck with me because of how bizarre it is. This ended up happening back in the mid-2000s. You see, I grew up in a fairly dense set of woods just outside a fairly desolate area. Growing up, I always had this passion for exploring, and I loved going into those woods. Seriously, those woods were like my second home. You see, there'd be weekends I'd grab a tent and go camping out miles away from anyone. I guess that's why many of my family and friends always called me the nature boy. Woo! Sorry, I had to do that. Double points if you get the reference. Anyways, before this even happened, there would usually be this mountainous area I loved to go and explore. Consider it almost like an outdoors jungle gym. Here, I could climb to the top of a ledge, and I'd have a perfect view of the woods around me. I could even see my house off in the far distance. Next to me was a small waterfall which I'd love to go dive down into the lake below. Well, one of these evenings I've been out there yet again, only this time I brought my dog with me. I recall it being around midnight. I sat in my tent with the front open, and I was watching the sky above me. Meanwhile, I was keeping warm with a campfire. My dog Ralph laid right next to me. Seemingly out of nowhere, I could hear what sounded like someone calling out to me. Here's the thing, there was this familiarity to it. Note that the noise sounded quite a bit of ways from me, but I was still able to hear it. At first, it sounded like an animal or maybe a wolf was howling, but the more it kept going on, the more it sounded like a person. This was when Ralph woke up, thinking my dad was calling out to us. I'd now stepped out of the tent and I tried to get a better look at the woods down below me. Guess what? We don't see anything, but what I heard in those woods made me freeze. Michael, come over here. In case you didn't already figure it out, my name is Michael. Here's the thing, why would my dad be calling out to me this late? Not only are we like a mile out into the wilderness, but it's the middle of the night. I mean, he could have called me on my cell phone had it been an emergency. Either way, I started to think that perhaps he couldn't get in touch with me, and who knows, maybe something serious happened. Ralph and I quickly climbed down from our camping spot, and we began walking over to where we thought we heard the sounds. This continues on for about 10 minutes, but that's before I started to realize something. The sound of my dad's voice? Well, it was leading us further away from our home, not closer to it. Eventually, I'm able to see that the woods are starting to get more dense. Now, we are nearing a cavern system. You see, I normally tend to avoid this area because the ground is unstable, and it's difficult terrain. Still, I'm hearing what sounded like my dad calling out to me. But that's until I started to notice a change. The voice began to sound like there was a filter to it. Along with this, I began to get this really strange smell of iron, and to top everything off, Ralph started to whine. It's almost like he was sensing something bad was up ahead. This was enough to cause us to turn around, and so we start heading back home. Clearly, we had been hearing things and I was out of it, I thought. We start heading back, and that's when we heard the heavy footsteps. We take off in a full-on sprint, until eventually my dog stopped in his tracks and began to growl. Note, he's a German Shepherd, and he's very protective of me. Come on, not now, Ralph. This isn't the time. Come on, let's go. I turn around, and that's when I see it. A bit of a distance ahead of me behind some trees, I'm able to make out the silhouette of something tall with antlers. Think of it almost like an elk, only that it was standing up straight on its two hind legs. I'll never forget those yellow eyes that reflected off my light. At any rate, Ralph had been barking like crazy, and I was almost considering giving him the command to go after this thing. You see, he was very well trained as my dad was a police officer, and he had spent many years training him. Either way, I didn't know what this thing was, and I didn't want him getting hurt. Instead, I tell him to follow me and we continue on without looking back. The last thing I remember was hearing a loud howl that still remains in my memory today. In summary, we made it home and I ended up telling my parents about it, and of course, they didn't believe me. Not that I would have believed it had I heard it from someone else. Months went by, and nothing like that ever happened again. So, now I pass the question to you. What do you think it was? Please, serious responses only. Story number 3. Unexplained activity at my grandpa's cabin. I'm not even sure how to start, but nonetheless, here we go. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. As some background, we're going to be talking about my grandpa and his cabin. My grandfather was an amazing man. He always looked out for his family. You see, he was a firefighter who seriously would go out of his way to put a smile on your face. Along with this, he would help you out. I'd say that was the most respectful thing about him. He has since passed, but his cabin home still remains up in the nearby mountains. Growing up, I would spend every weekend with him, and it was so much fun. Either we would go into the woods camping, or we would stay up late watching movies and eating popcorn in the living room. I digress. Let me take you back to this past weekend when my wife, my 2-year-old golden retriever, and I went to spend a weekend in this cabin. To quickly describe the cabin, it had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, kitchen, and a living room. On our stay there, we chose to stay in the guest room. That's the room I would normally stay in when visiting. It was also the location of a nice fancy flat-screen TV. Yeah, my grandpa really spoiled his guests. Well, the Friday when we arrived, things were going pretty normally, but for whatever reason, our dog started to act strange. What I mean by this was she kept looking at the walls and she would keep barking at nothing. My wife and I found this weird, but anytime we tried to get her to calm down, she would ignore us. And we're talking about a very well-trained dog here. It's not normal for her to just ignore our commands. Ultimately, we decided we would go ahead and take a walk into the woods so she could let out her energy. The thing is, as we head to the door, she stood still. She didn't want to exit, and even though we tried pushing her, she wouldn't move. Finally, we were able to convince her with some treats. Still, why was she acting this way? I mean, there's not anyone around here, is there? So we close up the cabin and we spend the next 20 minutes walking into the nearby woods. After it seemed our dog had relaxed, we now start making our way back to the cabin, though something doesn't seem right. It was dark by this point, but we're able to see light up ahead of us. As we got closer, we started to realize the light we were seeing was an old lamp my grandfather had in his living room. In that moment, my first thought was somebody had broken into the house, but as we got closer, we noticed no doors nor windows were open. Funny. I turn to my wife and I say, "Honey, did you forget to turn the lamp off?" She was obviously confused as she responds with, "No, I never was even near it. Are you sure you didn't leave it on?" One thing was definitely obvious. Neither of us had turned it on. As quietly as I could, I approached the cabin trying to see if I could peek through the window. If someone somehow got in there, perhaps I could see them. I'm not even feet away from the house when her dog started to whine. So much for her barking. Anyways, I determined the house was empty, so we go ahead and step indoors, only to determine the lamp was malfunctioning. Fast forward later that night, everyone was fast asleep and it was around 2 in the morning. Of course, I had trouble sleeping that night due to having a stuffy nose, so I mainly laid in bed with my eyes closed, just trying to get some rest. Out of nowhere, I felt what was like a hand touch my shoulder. This was enough to force me awake as I look over to my wife fast asleep. Wait a minute. Was I just dreaming? No way. That was definitely somebody touching my shoulder. But the wife is asleep. Should I try waking her up? Honey, hey, are you awake? Come on, if you're going to play jokes on me, can it wait until tomorrow morning? She wakes up annoyed as she goes on to explain, I most likely just dreamt the whole thing. Sorry, but I've been asleep. Now, do you mind? Eventually, she returns back to sleep as I stayed up and made myself a coffee. Yeah, safe to say I really didn't get any sleep. But wait, it gets even better. Since I was unable to sleep, I went to the living room to watch TV. Boy, I'll tell you, there are some interesting infomercials at 3 a.m. An hour goes by and it's time to use the little boy's room. As I was now in the hallway, I see from the corner of my eye someone standing by the front door. From what I was thinking, I thought it was my wife, but as I passed by the guest room, I saw her fast asleep in bed. I now go on the defensive as I go to see who was there. No one. whoever had been standing there just seemingly disappeared. Tired and confused, I finish using the restroom and finally I'm able to get some sleep, albeit I only slept for about 3 hours. Okay, we're now in the final day of our trip and we're starting to suspect that we might be overreacting to a series of coincidences. This afternoon, we were planning on having a campfire behind the cabin before leaving the next morning. As such, I head out into the woods to get some firewood, while my wife stayed behind and prepared the food. About 20 minutes later, I'm hearing a yell and it sounds like my wife. Instantly, I drop the firewood I had with me, and I'm running back to the cabin like Superman. There I find my wife and her dog as they sat in our Toyota Camry. As you can imagine, my wife jumps out and she's explaining to me what she saw in the house. Here's more or less what she described. Just like I said, I'd left the cabin and she was busy baking a cake. About 10 minutes after I left, she started to hear footsteps towards my grandpa's room. She thought perhaps I was inside the house, so she calls out to me. "Honey, is that you? Wow, I didn't think you were going to be back that soon. Come on, let's get the firewood ready." Since I obviously wasn't there, I don't respond back. Instead, my wife is welcomed by a loud crashing sound. Spooked out, she goes to check out the noise, thinking her dog had dropped something. Here's the thing. Before she gets into the hallway, she sees her dog hiding and crying underneath the couch. Strange, but she continues on to my grandpa's door to see it was closed. Surely our dog couldn't have opened it on her own. She opens it to reveal that some of my grandpa's vintage photo frames had fallen off the shelf and broken. This was when my wife goes to pick up the mess and happens to look through the mirror in front of her. In the back of the room, standing in the corner, is a dark mask that seems to resemble a person. She turns around, and guess what? Nothing is there. But what happens next is what sends her running out to the car. In broad daylight, she sees another photo fly off the shelf and drop inches away from her. And so, that's where we are now. So, who was the one experiencing things now? Regardless, I go inside to check it out, and just like she said, the place was a mess. Whoever, or better yet, whatever was in there, obviously didn't want us there, so we decided to lock up the house and leave. We ended up talking to a friend of ours who studies this unexplained stuff, and she told us there was most likely bad energy there. Needless to say, the house was cleansed, and soon after that, things settled down. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. Anyone get that reference? I promise it's relevant to my story. Hi, I'm here today to talk to you all about my experiences working at a hotel back in the early 2000s. As some background, I live in Mexico City, and I still do, and this happened during the summer before I would start university. See, I was looking at saving some money before I would start my extended education. Sure, my dad had set aside some money for me, but I knew it wasn't going to be enough. Therefore, I had decided I would go ahead and get a part-time job, working at a hotel on the other side of town. This hotel was interesting to say the least. You see, it no longer exists, but at the time, it was quite famous for its unexplained activity. Guests would complain about seeing orbs or hearing voices at night. There was even a time an employee ended up quitting because they saw a woman in a dress with long dark hair. She was standing in a hallway at 3 in the morning. In fact, there was a team that was sent to investigate the hotel, and they ended up leaving due to how serious their investigation got. Okay, it sounded sort of spooky, but let's face it, I honestly thought it was a bunch of lies. Before this took place, I was the kind of person who believed there was an answer to everything. I mean, come on, what are the chances of someone really experiencing something like that? Gosh, I wish I wasn't so naive. Okay, so I got the job and I'd only been working there for about 3 weeks. And that's when I had my first experience. I was with my fellow co-worker Maria, and we were on the 3rd floor cleaning one of the rooms. It's around 10 p.m. and Maria had left to wash the covers. So there I am. I'm cleaning the restroom when all of a sudden, I felt this sudden cold air enter the room. Sure, we did have air conditioning in this hotel, but it's not like it was supposed to be Antarctica. If that wasn't enough, I even heard a female voice call out to me. Thinking Maria had returned, I get up only to be welcomed with an empty room. What was different, however, was the TV was turned on. All there was static, which could have explained where the voice had come from. I'm guessing Maria had left the TV on when she was cleaning the main room. Well, I go to turn it off and Maria returns a couple of minutes later. Oye, María, ¿por acaso dejaste el televisión prendido? No, si me acabo de ir. Ni ha tenido tiempo a ver televisión. ¿Por qué? In other words, I wanted to know if she turned the TV on, but she said she didn't even have time to have done so. Fair enough. I write it off as the TV malfunctioning and we finish our work for the night. A couple of weeks later, I'm working late at night again, and I'm with my coworker Maria. Since my last experience, a fellow coworker was complaining about hearing voices in a room that had no guests. Mind you, I wasn't working that night. By the time security had arrived, they opened the door to reveal no one, and all the sounds had just stopped completely. If that wasn't weird, it gets better. So by this point, I'm now cleaning rooms on my own, but Maria was always in the room next to me. In case I needed her help or advice, she could be there for me. I'm cleaning away changing the covers, when suddenly I get this strong scent of perfume. Due to the fact we were busy that night, I figured the smell had somehow traveled through the air ventilation. I won't complain, it smelled pretty nice, so I didn't mind it. Regardless, I needed the room to smell, well, like a hotel room. So I grabbed the air refreshener and I began to spray the room. As I'm doing so, it happens. One of the chairs that sat next to the desk comes flying out. Yeah, let's just say I screamed like a kid. That was enough to cause Maria to come running over to me in concern. ¿Qué pasó, mijo? ¿Estás bien? No, Maria. La silla. Se movió solo. She wanted to know what happened, and I explained the chair had moved on its own. That's when she says out loud, Por favor, cálmate, Patricia. Deja de mover las cosas. Or in English, please calm down. Stop moving things around, Patricia. Just like that, the strange feeling I got in the room stopped. Okay, wait. What in the world happened? Did she really just tell whatever was here to stop? I needed to know more, but she gives me the usual speech of it happens sometimes. Apparently somebody passed here years ago, and they believe they are the ones responsible for all the strange happenings. They ended up giving her the name Patricia, which I guess explains the smell. In summary, I ended up putting in my 2 weeks after that, but I still remain close to Maria since she was so sweet. Seriously, she was like my second grandmother. But yeah, the hotel is long gone now, but it's been years since it took place. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed listening. Story number 5. The activity at my old home. Hey there, everyone. The name's John, and let's just say I've always been interested in the unexplained ever since I was a kid. No kidding. I've seen my fair share of apparitions and I've heard voices growing up, but what really puts the icing on the cake was the first time I ever started to experience something. Let me take you back to when I first met who I ended up calling the Shadow Man. As some quick information, I'm 22, but this was from when I was 15, and my family and I moved into our new home. I'll try to skip the major details and just get straight to it. Our home was located at the very end of a long dirt path in which you would have to drive down on for about half a mile. This meant that even though we lived in your average Alabama town, we still felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. On top of this, we rarely got any visitors, so our old home sat quiet for the most part. This quiet would soon be interrupted. See, my parents worked all summer, and I would usually be responsible for taking care of the house. Not that I really minded it, considering my parents bought me all the food and other necessities I needed. It had been about 2 months since we moved in, and I was starting to get used to my schedule of waking up late and playing Xbox. One of these afternoons, about an hour before my mom would get home, I was busy playing on Xbox Live with my friends. That's when we started joking and talking about old spooky stories. I guess it didn't help that I was home alone, but I think that was the reasoning as to why my friends were doing this. Geez, thanks. Anyways, as one of my friends was going on about an experience he had while home alone, I suddenly started to hear whispers coming from the hallway. And then you'll never guess what happened next. There was a man standing in my room, and he was just staring at me in the corner. No kidding. Guys, hold on a minute. What? Was my story too much for you? No, that's not it. I could have sworn I heard somebody talking in the hallway. Nah, dude. You're just being paranoid. Relax. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, that's right. I wasn't having any of my friend's sarcasm, so I take the headset off and I take a better listen. I can't remember how long I sat there, but it was enough for my friends to start calling out my name.
Hey, you still there? What's going on?
I told them I'd be right back as I get up from the couch. That's when I heard something fall over. With nothing else to protect myself, I grabbed my skateboard and slowly started walking over to where I heard the noise. What I saw was a cup had fallen and broken on the floor. That's weird, I tell myself. I remember leaving it right there in the middle of the table. It would have taken a lot of force to have moved it. I tested the idea by placing a plastic cup on the table, and yeah, just like I imagined, it did take a bit of force to move it. Regardless, I'm forced to clean up the mess on the ground. I go to throw the cup in the trash when suddenly I get this strong urge to turn around. See, from where I was standing, you could see the living room, and just beyond that, you could see the entrance to my father's study room. I happened to catch a glimpse of a very tall, dark shadow of a man walking into the study area. Instantly, I grab my cell phone and I run out the door thinking somebody had broken into the house. When officers arrived, they checked the entire property, but they said they couldn't find anyone. One of them did tell me, though, you should probably clean the mess in your dad's room, or he's going to be mad at you. The officer's name was Kenny, and he was a friend of the family's. I was confused as to why, so together we walk over to his room, and we see there was a broken cup on the ground with coffee spilt on the carpet. Oh man, now there's a stain, and I really didn't feel like spending the next hour going through various cleaning products just to try and get it out. Well, that wasn't a big deal. What was how in the world that even happened. I mean, I wasn't even in my dad's room, so I couldn't even see if he had left coffee in there. But I knew seeing two things had fallen down on their own did have me a bit worried. When Dad got home, I explained what had happened, but of course he doesn't believe me. Figures as much. After that day, I started having really bad dreams. I would wake up sweating, feeling as if I was being watched. It did eventually calm down, but there would be times I would have dreams that felt so real. I would see somebody standing in the corner of the room, only to wake up and see nothing. Activity had seemed to calm down for a while as I entered my senior year of high school, but I would have one final experience that would confirm my case of wanting to move out to the dorms on my upcoming college campus. My girlfriend and I were at my house and my parents had been out for dinner. My girlfriend and I were busy watching a movie when she needed to get up to use the restroom. No problem. About a minute later, she returned screaming, saying there was a man standing by my bedroom door. Together we go to check it out, only to find nothing yet again. We do, however, get a sudden feeling of cold air. I at this point had enough, so I say out loud, "Look, I don't know who you are, but you need to leave now. That's enough. I'm tired of this." Like that was going to work. Strangely enough, it did, because soon after, activity had finally stopped, and I no longer experienced anything. Eventually, I moved out and I went to college. About a month after I'd left, my father called me with an update.
Hey son, how's the college life treating you? Oh, it's great, Dad. I finally don't have to deal with having bad dreams. And guess what? There's no longer things falling over.
My dad laughed at the little jokes I threw at him, but what he said next, I could tell he was serious about.
Look, son, I'm happy to hear you're doing well. As for your mother and I, we have since moved out from the house and we're staying with your aunt and your uncle. Wait, why? Are you guys getting the house fixed or something?
He goes on to tell me that as soon as I left, things started to go missing, and they started to complain about hearing things at night. My mom even woke up a couple of times at night to see shadows and even hear footsteps. Because of this, someone was called to cleanse the house, but apparently my mom was so spooked out, she thought it was best they sell the house and move in with her sister in the meantime. And that's pretty much how the story goes. Oh man, that was spooky, wasn't it? Hey, you still there? Hello? Hey. I'm talking to you. Hey, thanks for stopping by and listening, friends. I hope you enjoyed those stories. I'd say they were perfect, considering Halloween is next week. I even went ahead and did some spooky filming, which you just saw. But yeah, tell me what you all thought about those stories. I'll admit, I never really believed in unexplained things until I really started to listen to these stories. It really does open your mind to the possibilities out there. With that said, I do pass a question off to you that goes with today's theme. Have you ever experienced something unexplained? And if so, what was it? And what was it like? Feel free to comment down below and tell me, or if you want, you can email me with the email in the description below. Who knows, maybe your story might be shared next. With that said, it's been a while since I've done some bonus footage along with commentary, so let's go ahead and lighten up the mood a bit to end today's adventures. First off, we'll start off with Sally. Who is Sally, you might be wondering? She was a pet duck I had about 4 years ago. This was her when she was a baby. Isn't she so cute? She would follow me around anywhere I would go. Honestly, it was like I was her mom or something. Well, sadly she has left us friends, but during the time I had her, we shared so many adventures together, and I'll always cherish them forever. Here are just some of the fun little videos I went ahead and included for you all to see. I don't know about you, but most of my friends have pet dogs or cats, so when I told them I had a pet duck, it was more or less like this.
Hey, guess what? I have a new pet.
You'd imagine they would say things like,
Really? What kind of dog did you get? No, I didn't get a dog. Oh, so you got a cat? Nope, keep going. A bird, maybe? Yeah, but what kind? I don't know, a parakeet? Just come over and I'll show you.
Yeah, they were pretty surprised when they started to hear her in the backyard. But that's enough from me. Remember, I'm on vacation right now, so come say hello on my social media if you wish. I'd love to have you there. But with that, my friends, I'll see you all... Well, actually, I won't see you next week since I'm taking the week off. But I'll see you starting November 5th. I've got some unexplained mysteries. That one's actually a pretty good one, so make sure to mark it on your calendars. Until then, take care, everyone. I love you all, and have a good one.